This is based on a concept that Jane Margolis published first in 2008. I actually learned about it a few years earlier through the Broadening Participation in Computing program at the National Science Foundation. So the simple way to think about this is, everybody's been talking about or moving around the idea that microworlds it's an app. And if you add pedagogy to it, you're going to get some authentic learning. And the question that's been bugging me for a couple of years now, but most profoundly as I work with rural kids who have almost no exposure to computing, is this enough? Do we need to look at things differently in order to see how to motivate people to code, but also to help them code well? So I'm drawing from an analogy. Swim America and the YMCA in the United States don't like Swimmies. They have very specific ways of teaching swimming so that you can make it to the deep end, but more to the point that you can swim in open water. And by open water, we mean the ocean or lakes, cold lakes, which is where I love to swim. You really can't appreciate swimming until you've snorkeled or been in a situation where your kayak has swamped. And so they characterize levels of ability by whether you're in the shallow end or the deep end, which is what Jane drew from, or if you're in open water. And I'm going to claim that most of the projects that you all are expecting from students are really open water in some respects. And so I want to explore a little bit what that might mean. In particular, both of these organizations and a number of other swimming organizations in the United States promote the idea that to gain confidence in the water, you want to have a real life jacket on. And in fact, the YMCA says that's the only thing that's allowed. Swimming are these inflatable things you put on your arms. If you puncture them, if they slip off, if they weren't put on right, you will go down. And there's a middle ground. There are a whole bunch of things on the market that help little kids get comfortable in the water. The problem with them is if the kid tips, they can't get back. So I'm also drawing from the quilting culture, which I've been heavily involved in. And the available resources for quilting are books. You can take courses, and there's a multitude of online videos and instruction and blogs, and some of them are fantastic and others are totally useless. And there's a clear breakdown between shallow and open water, in that in the shallows, you use quilting kits. This one happens to cost over $100 on sale. Everything's there. All you have to do is follow directions and put it together. And unfortunately, a lot of teaching of coding is like that. Here's a problem. Here are your resources. And I'm going to show you some stuff. And now you're going to do what I want you to do. Deep end is where you master a core technique. And this is a project, project notes for me that produced those pillows when my daughter first left home. What you can see at the top is there's a technique called strip cutting, where you create strips of fabric and you sew them together and then you cut them up. And as a result, you get pieces that can then be formed into a pattern. And then on the right, I am showing off some of the recent quilting I've been doing, where I take traditional patterns and techniques from quilting, in particular African-American quilting, and I turn it into something new and novel. And we're having a lot of fun with the stuff on the right with young people. So what about programming? Let's see if this moves. Yes. Okay. So we start here, right? And I actually include this little starter thing at the top, so I can just press the space bar and get to the next one. So I'm starting to think about, okay, how can I automatically do these 4 steps? And I think this alludes a little bit to what Brian was saying about loops. Okay, so yeah, this works too, right? Then if I have the insight or I've been properly taught, I can move on. I can go find a control structure that might work for this. And our favorite, of course, is repeat and get, oh, we got it in there. And I want to keep it separate so that I can go back and clear without restarting it. Oh yeah, and this is an aside. For those of us who are not good at concentrating, you hit the wrong key sometimes. And I decided not to edit this out. And then the power of Snap and Turtlestitch is that the idea of blocks came here first. And again, I have a new procedure. And what I've noticed in Turtlestitch, when I go plumbing through the remixes, through other people's stuff, is very few people actually get this far, where they think about putting it into a block. A lot of what we're seeing, sadly, is what back in the dark ages we called spaghetti code. And the beauty of Logo was that you didn't have spaghetti code. You had wonderful, wonderful procedures and functions. And here again, I'm illustrating that, granted, I was frazzled when I was putting this together and decided not to edit it, is that sometimes the interface supports me and sometimes the interface doesn't. And then the last little tidbit is this idea of writing libraries. In order to do some quilting stuff, I want to use Turtlestitch in order to actually stitch on top of my quilt patterns. I'm building a library. I've been at it for a long time. And there's something wrong here. Do you see what's wrong here? I know Brian sees what's wrong here if he's here. Is that oopsies, I'm not using my variable. There we go. So I decided to do this as a video rather than live, because I know if I'm trying to talk to you all and say something moderately coherent without a script and code at the same time, I will prove or show nothing. So that's what I have to say. This idea of the deep end, the shallow end, and open water. And my claim is that, yeah, we can teach a lot of people the real basic stuff about coding, but are they really doing the kind of problem solving and creativity and organization of their code that we would really like to see? So I really do believe that the shallow end is co-pilot and remixing. But it's also critical to have an environment that really supports you moving from an experiment to a library. And that's pretty much what I have to say. Oops, wrong key. So shoot my thesis down. And you can just use Snap because that's what this conference is about. But in small groups. And the Zoomers, I would suggest just chatting. Okay, identify the shallow, deep, and open techniques in the Snap micro world. Okay. What does everybody need to know? And what I learned in horrible detail about a month ago was that if kids don't understand drag and drop, and if kids don't understand units of measure in a practical sense, not in a school sense, can't do a thing. And there isn't time to do it in a very short introduction. Identify how you do those things, those techniques that you see as most important. And also identify how you think they should be taught in Snap. So I'm going to go away. I have a museum installation to put together by Friday night. And we are frantic. This was a surprise. 2 weeks ago. I didn't know we were going to be invited to do this. Send me your results. And for those of you who really need a competitive challenge, I promise there will be prizes if you send me your mailing address. So have fun. I'm going to run away, talk to a neighbor or two, and see what you come up with. I will leave the slide up here until the plenary room master takes it away. So enjoy. Bye.